The first 10 seconds were enough for me to understand that something about him was wrong. I didn't know his name yet. I didn't know his background. I didn't know the story he planned to tell me. But I recognized the look in his eyes before he even opened his mouth. The door to my office opened slowly, as if he wanted the exact amount of silence to follow him in. Men who come to work for me don't open doors like that. They rush, they hesitate, they knock too many times, or they stand frozen behind the handle. But this man was none of those things. He entered with confidence that wasn't loud, but intentional. His steps were firm, aligned, and centered. He kept his hands visible, a detail most people don't notice. I notice everything, especially when someone wants to control the way I see them. "Miss Conti?" he asked. His voice was deep, controlled and trained. Not trained for corporate offices. Trained for something else. Something that required discipline, calm breathing, and the ability to lie without blinking. "Yes," I answered, keeping my expression neutral. "Who are you?" He stepped closer, stopping at the distance men choose when they want to appear respectful but still close enough to be noticed. "Logan Mercer. I'm the new security consultant." Security consultant. That alone was enough to make me suspicious. No one gets into my security division without my personal approval. Yet someone had slid his resume under my radar. I didn't stand. I lifted my chin slightly and waited for him to extend his hand. He did. I shook it, not out of politeness, but to feel the truth under his skin. Temperature, tension, pulse, pressure. Everything a person tries to hide comes to the surface when they make contact. His pulse jumped. That one detail told me two things. He wasn't expecting me to be calm, and he wasn't expecting me to be this woman. "Thank you for meeting with me," he said. "I'm here to support your operations in any way you need. Any way I need. Men with clean intentions don't phrase it like that. Men with hidden agendas do." I leaned back in my chair and studied him openly. The long dark hair, the well-shaped jaw, the shirt slightly open at the collar. The posture of someone who knows his appearance is part of the job. He was attractive in a deliberate way. Attractive enough to be noticed. Attractive enough to distract. Attractive enough to lower defenses. At least that's what he hoped. "Who recommended you?" I asked, folding my hands on the desk. He hesitated for exactly half a second. Long enough for me to catch it. Short enough that an ordinary woman wouldn't have. "An associate from the West Branch," he replied. "He said you were looking for someone with my level of experience." "I see," I said. "And what level is that?" He straightened. "I specialize in evaluating internal risks and identifying signs of disloyal behavior. I observe patterns, study reactions, and help prevent problems before they escalate." His answer was too smooth, too clean, too perfectly structured. Like a script he had practiced the night before. "And you believe you can do that for me?" I asked. "I believe I can be useful," he said. Useful. Another red flag. People who work for me don't try to be useful. They try to be necessary. Only someone hiding something tries to be agreeable. "Tell me something," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Why does a man like you choose a job like this?" "A man like me?" he repeated. "Yes. Confident, prepared, calculated." I watched his throat move when he swallowed. "People like you don't stumble into my world by accident." He held my gaze longer than most men would dare, but I saw the exact moment the truth slipped through. The slight movement of his left eyebrow. The subtle shift of his foot. The way he lowered his voice just a touch. "Maybe I was looking for a challenge," he said. I gave him a slow, calm smile. "You found one." A small reaction appeared in his eyes, something he didn't intend to show. Curiosity mixed with something else. Something warmer. Something more dangerous to him than to me. He cleared his throat. "I came prepared to earn your trust." "Trust isn't something you earn from me," I replied. "I decide if you deserve it." He didn't expect that answer. His jaw flexed. I want to prove myself, he insisted. Why? I asked immediately. He blinked. Once. Twice. That was all I needed to confirm that he wasn't here for security. A man pretending to protect me always reveals a motive he doesn't want to say out loud. You seem like someone worth following, he said. A bold line. A rehearsed line. A dangerous line. Logan, I said softly. Are you trying to impress me? He smiled a little. Is that what you think? It's what I see, I replied. He exhaled slowly. A measured breath, one that he used to recover balance. He was clearly trained to manipulate rooms like this, trained to study faces, voice tone, and vulnerabilities, trained to approach targets gently, pull them closer, and take what he needed. But he walked into the wrong office. I stood and walked around my desk. His eyes followed every step, though he tried to hide it. When I stopped behind him, he straightened slightly, shoulders tense. Relax, I said. If I wanted you gone, you wouldn't have made it past the lobby. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He didn't comment. He simply waited. That's when I knew for sure. Only an infiltrator waits like that. Calm, still, ready to adapt, ready to lie again if needed. I circled back to my chair. I'll evaluate your performance over the next few weeks. I understand, he said. But don't push your luck, I added. Many men have tried to get close to me for the wrong reasons. They never last. He nodded once, but the trace of emotion in his eyes wasn't fear. It was interest. Dangerous interest. Will there be anything else? He asked. No, I said. You can go. He stood, fixed the collar of his shirt, and walked toward the door with controlled movements. I watched his back, his posture, the way he turned slightly as if checking my reaction one last time. He wanted to see if he had affected me. He hadn't, but I had affected him. See you tomorrow, Ms. Conti, he said gently. Perhaps, I replied. He paused for a second, just long enough for me to catch it, before leaving the room. The door closed, the silence returned, and I allowed myself the first genuine smile of the day. Logan Mercer had entered my life believing he could seduce me, deceive me, and destroy me from the inside. He thought he could manipulate my emotions, study my weaknesses, and walk away with everything I built. But I saw through him in the first 10 seconds. He wasn't here to protect me. He wasn't here to serve me. He wasn't here to help. He was here to infiltrate my world by getting close to me. Too close. What he didn't know was simple. I already had a plan for him. A plan he would follow without even realizing it. A plan that would end with him giving me everything he meant to steal. Because the real trap wasn't his mission. The real trap was me. I didn't expect to see him again so early the next morning. But there he was, standing outside my office before the sun had even finished climbing through the New York skyline. He stood tall, hands behind his back, staring at the city like he was trying to memorize every window. The elevator doors opened behind me. He turned, surprised for only a moment, and straightened his posture like he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't. "Good morning, Miss Conti," he said. His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. They carried a hint of something he didn't want me to see. Curiosity, maybe anticipation, maybe confusion about the way our last meeting had ended. "Good morning, Logan," I replied. I walked past him, and he followed 2 steps behind without being told. Another detail I stored in my mind. Men who want to impress me walk beside me. Men who want control walk ahead. Men who want something they shouldn't walk behind. I unlocked my office door and entered. He hesitated again, waiting for permission. I didn't give it. Not immediately. I wanted to watch his reaction. He stood still, patient, composed, but his fingers tapped lightly against the folder he held, almost unnoticeably. That small gesture told me he wasn't as calm as he wanted to appear, and the reason for that was me. "Come in," I finally said. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "What do you need this early?" I asked, taking my seat. "I prepared a full security assessment," he said, placing 3 organized folders on the desk. "Threat predictions, staff evaluations, and updated protocols." "That fast?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "I work well under pressure," he said. "And I wanted you to have something solid by the end of my first day." A normal employee would congratulate themselves. A liar trying to win my confidence would deliver too much too quickly. Logan fell directly into the second category. But I wasn't going to call him out. I wanted to see how far he would go. "And what do you expect me to do with all of this?" I asked. "Let me prove myself," he said, locking eyes with me in a way that would intimidate most people. But I wasn't most people. "No," I replied. He froze. "No?" he repeated. "No," I said calmly. "You cannot prove yourself to me. I allow you to work, and I decide if that continues." His jaw tightened just enough to reveal irritation. Not anger. Just the frustration of someone who is used to gaining approval easily. Women probably trusted him on sight. Men probably saw him as reliable. People probably opened doors for him without questioning what he wanted in return. But I wasn't about to give him what he expected. He cleared his throat. "Understood." "Good," I said, standing. "Follow me." He followed, and I noticed something strange. He matched my steps exactly. Men who train for undercover roles often do that. They mirror the rhythm of the person they want to influence. It's a psychological trick to build connection. Too bad it doesn't work on me. We walked through the hallway, past the glass offices where my staff worked. Conversation lowered everywhere we passed, not out of fear, but respect. My presence always had that effect. Logan noticed. He looked around, studying faces, movements, reactions to me. And then he looked at me again, like he was trying to understand something deeper. We reached the entrance where new shipments arrived and where my operations team monitored activity. "This area is far more important than my office," I said. "If you want to evaluate anything, start by observing people here." He nodded. "Of course." I crossed my arms. "Tell me what you see." He scanned the room, then spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Everyone here moves with confidence, but not nervousness. They trust the structure you built. They trust each other. But they check the corners of the room more often than necessary. That tells me they're expecting new disruptions. Interesting. Accurate enough for someone well-trained, but also too fast. Too precise. Too neatly packaged. And do you think you're one of those disruptions?" I asked. He blinked. A small pause. A small truth. "I don't intend to be," he said. That wasn't an answer. That was a dodge. I stepped closer. Not too close, but close enough that I could see the way his breathing shifted. He tried to maintain his posture, but the air around us became heavier. "Look at me, Logan," I said. His eyes locked onto mine immediately. "Are you prepared to say the truth to me?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Then say something true." He swallowed once. "You make it difficult to focus." There it was. Not the truth I expected, but a truth he didn't mean to reveal. I tilted my head. "Is that so?" "Yes," he said, his voice lower than before. "You walk into a room and everything else stops." I didn't smile. I didn't react. I wanted him to sit in his own confession. I wanted him to feel the weight of it. Attraction was not part of his mission. Attraction was a weakness. For his side, not mine. "You shouldn't say things like that if you want to keep your position," I said. He stepped back slightly, realizing what he had admitted. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "That was unprofessional." "No," I corrected. "It was unexpected, and unexpected reveals more truth than anything else." His chest rose and fell slowly, and I wondered for a moment what kind of pressure he was under. Who sent him? what they promised him, what they threatened him with. Men don't take jobs like this for fun. They take them because someone demands it. I walked past him again, leading us back toward the office, and he followed silently. When we reached my door, he stopped with his hand on the handle. "Ms. Conti?" he asked. "Yes? What do you really want from me?" A direct question. Bold. A little dangerous. I stepped closer again, watching his expression carefully. "What I want," I said slowly, "is to see how far you'll go to pretend you're someone you're not." His breath caught. He knew I knew something, but he didn't know what. I lowered my voice just slightly. "And I want to see what happens when you realize I'm ahead of you." He didn't move. He didn't blink. He just stared at me like he didn't know whether to fear me or want me. "Good. That will be all for today," I said. "You can go." He nodded slowly. "Of course." He opened the door, stepped into the hallway, then looked back one last time. "See you tomorrow, Ms. Conti." "You will," I answered, "because I'm not finished watching you." He left. And the moment the door closed, I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Not because I was nervous, but because I finally understood the thing I hadn't been able to name yesterday. Logan Mercer wasn't just an infiltrator. He was a man who could fall for me. And a man who falls becomes careless. Careless men are easy to break, and easy to use. Letting him get close wasn't a risk. It was a strategy. The question now was simple. How close should I let him get? By the end of the week, Logan had already become a quiet shadow in every corner of my organization. Not because I asked him to be, and not because he wanted to blend in. He became a shadow because he was studying everything: my work, my team, my routines, and most importantly, me. He thought he was subtle. He wasn't. But I let him believe he was. His presence didn't bother me. What bothered me was how easily people began to trust him. He carried himself like someone who belonged here, which only confirmed my suspicion. He had practiced belonging for years. On Friday night, I decided to attend a small private event hosted by one of my closest allies. Elegant, intimate, nothing risky. It wasn't the kind of night meant for threats. It was the kind of night meant for watching people reveal who they were when they relaxed. Logan arrived before I did. I saw him across the room, speaking quietly with one of my security officers. He wore a dark shirt that fit him too well to be accidental, sleeves rolled up just enough to show the lines of his forearms. His hair was pulled back, leaving his face exposed. Strong jaw, focused eyes, calm posture. When he noticed me, he stopped mid-sentence. The room wasn't silent, but the way he froze made it feel like it was. His gaze ran over me slowly, not in a disrespectful way, but in a way he couldn't control. It wasn't calculated. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't part of his mission. It was real. And real feelings are the first sign that an infiltrator is starting to fall apart. I walked toward him deliberately, my heels tapping lightly on the marble floor. People greeted me along the way, but my eyes stayed on him, and his eyes stayed on me, like the rest of the room had faded. "Ms. Conti," he said when I reached him, voice slightly lower than usual. "Logan," I answered. "I didn't expect to see you tonight." He cleared his throat. "I was told it was important to attend." "Told by who?" I asked. He blinked once. "Your head of security." "Interesting," I said, noticing the faint tension in his shoulders. "You seem uncomfortable." "I'm not," he said quickly. "Lie." I stepped closer, close enough to see the way his breath deepened. "Relax. This isn't a test." He swallowed, which told me he thought everything around me was a test. Good. Let him think that. "Would you like a drink?" I asked. He hesitated for a moment, not expecting the offer. "Sure." I turned toward the bar area, and he walked beside me. Not behind, not ahead, right beside. A small shift, barely noticeable, but revealing something important. He was starting to mirror me without thinking. Emotional synchronization always comes before romantic involvement. We reached the bar, and I leaned against the counter lightly. He stood close enough to feel my presence, but not close enough to touch. "Tell me," I said, taking a glass from the bartender. "How has your first week been?" "Busy," he replied. "But interesting." "Interesting how?" He looked at me again, directly. "You're not what I expected." That answer surprised me, but I didn't show it. "And what did you expect?" I asked calmly. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that revealed more nerves than confidence. Someone colder, more distant, less involved in the details. "And instead?" I asked. He inhaled slowly. "Instead, you know everything. You see everything. You feel the room before anyone else does." I smiled. "That bothers you?" "No," he said. "It scares me." His honesty was disarming. It wasn't planned. It wasn't part of his assignment. It slipped out of him like a truth he didn't know he was carrying. "Do I look like someone who should scare you?" I asked softly. "Yes," he said. I tilted my head. "Why?" He shifted his weight, his eyes lowering for a second before returning to mine. "Because I can't read you," he said. "And I can usually read everyone." That admission was more revealing than anything he had told me all week. "So," I said, stepping a little closer, "you're nervous around me?" His voice quieted. "Only because you make it difficult to stay objective." Objective. The word hung in the air like a confession. "Logan," I said gently, "do you really think your job requires objectivity?" "It should," he said. "But you're already losing it," I replied. He didn't deny it. The silence between us became something warm, something neither of us expected. Before I could say more, a slow song began playing in the background. Couples moved toward the center of the room. Some danced, others pretended not to, but watched anyway. Logan looked at them, then looked at me. He didn't ask. He didn't offer. But something in his eyes asked a question he didn't dare speak. I stepped closer and held out my hand. "Come with me." He hesitated for half a heartbeat before placing his hand in mine. His touch was warm and unexpectedly gentle. Not calculated. Not forced. Real. I led him to a quieter part of the room where the music softened. We stopped under a warm light. He looked unsure of what to do, so I moved first, placing one hand lightly on his shoulder and the other in his. He exhaled slowly. "You dance?" I asked. "Only when necessary." "And is this necessary?" I asked. "Yes," he said quietly. Our bodies moved in a slow rhythm. His breathing steadied, his shoulders relaxed. His guard, the one he fought to keep up, began to crumble. He was falling, and he knew it. "You're distracted," I said. "Can you blame me?" he replied. "Is this your strategy?" I teased. "Charm your way into my trust?" "No," he answered. "This is the part that wasn't supposed to happen." That caught my attention. "Oh?" I asked. "And what wasn't supposed to happen?" He drew a slow breath. "You." For the first time since I met him, he looked vulnerable. Not weak, vulnerable. Like someone who didn't expect to feel anything for the woman he was sent to mislead. I let our steps slow even more. "What did you think would happen, Logan?" I asked softly. He shook his head. "I told myself I would stay detached, professional, focused. But I walk into a room and I can't stop looking at you. I tell myself to stay distant, and then you say one thing and I lose my balance again. Is that what this is?" I whispered. "You losing your balance?" "Yes," he said. We stopped dancing, but neither of us stepped back. He looked at my lips for half a second, then forced himself to look away. That involuntary glance told me more than any words ever could. "Kiara," he said, voice unsteady. "This can't happen." "Why not?" I asked. He closed his eyes and murmured, "Because I'm not who you think I am." I expected that, just not so soon. I lifted his chin lightly with my fingers, guiding his eyes back to mine. "You don't need to tell me now," I said. "But someday you will." He didn't pull away from my touch. He leaned into it. When the music ended, he stepped back slowly, like it took effort to create distance. "I need some air," he said quietly. "Go," I replied. "But don't disappear." "I won't," he said. And he didn't. Not physically, but emotionally, something shifted in him that night. The infiltrator who walked into my office had come prepared to deceive me. The man who danced with me tonight had already begun betraying his mission, and he didn't even realize it yet. The morning after the event, I arrived at my headquarters earlier than usual. I didn't sleep much. Not because of tension or fear or worry. I didn't lose sleep for the reasons most leaders in my position do. I lost sleep because of the way Logan looked at me last night before he walked away. He didn't look like a man completing an assignment. He looked like a man losing control of something he believed he had mastered. And I couldn't ignore the way my body reacted to him either. My calm dropped the moment his hand touched mine during the dance. He wasn't supposed to affect me. He wasn't supposed to be someone I noticed in a way that felt personal. But he did. And I needed to understand why. When I walked into the building, the first person I saw was him. He stood at the far end of the hallway speaking to one of my staff members. His posture was straight, his jaw tight, his hands behind his back as if he was controlling every gesture. But the moment he noticed me, something inside him shifted. His shoulders relaxed, his guarded expression softened, and a quiet breath escaped him. He looked relieved to see me. That was the first sign that he'd fallen deeper into his own trap. "Good morning, Ms. Conti," he said, walking toward me with a calmer presence than usual. "Good morning, Logan," I replied, stopping in front of him. "I trust you rested well." He nodded, but his eyes betrayed him. They carried the weight of someone who spent the night thinking too much. "I want to speak with you," he said softly. "Privately." I raised an eyebrow. "About what?" He hesitated. And I mean truly hesitated. Not the measured silence of a trained infiltrator deciding what version of the truth to share. This was a human hesitation, a moment where emotion outweighed strategy. "Yesterday," he began, "I said things I shouldn't have." "Oh?" I asked. "Which part?" "The part where I told you I can't stay objective around you," he replied quietly. "So it wasn't true?" I asked. "It was," he said quickly. "It was completely true, and that's the problem." A warmth spread across my chest. Not excitement. Something quieter, deeper. Something I didn't allow myself to feel often. "And what exactly is the problem?" I pressed. He exhaled sharply. "You make it difficult to think clearly." "That sounds like a personal issue," I teased. He gave a short, breathy laugh, the kind that slips out when someone is close to admitting something bigger. "Yes," he said. "It is." I stepped closer, noticing the way his pulse quickened at my approach. "Do you want to tell me something, Logan?" I asked. "Yes," he whispered. His voice cracked. That alone told me more than any confession he could offer. "Then say it." He swallowed, struggling. I saw him weigh each word. I watched him rehearse, then erase entire sentences in his mind. I saw the guilt rise in his chest, the desire push against it, and the internal war that kept him silent. Finally, he said, "I wasn't honest with you when I came here." I let a calm expression settle on my face, even though I already knew this. "And what were you dishonest about?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognize now as his sign of distress. "My intentions," he said, "my assignment, my goals, my reason for being here. All things I expected." But hearing them from his mouth, spoken with regret instead of strategy, carried a new meaning. I placed my hand gently on the table beside me, leaning slightly forward. "Tell me the truth then," I said softly. Who are you really, Logan? His eyes lowered. I want to tell you, but I'm not sure how. Start with whatever part hurts the most, I said. He let out a strained breath, looking like a man torn between duty and desire. Kiara, I didn't expect to feel anything for you. None of this was supposed to happen. There was my confirmation. He didn't say it directly, but he didn't need to. I saw everything. I stepped closer again, close enough that our breathing aligned. And now? I asked. What do you feel now? He looked at me with an expression that shook me in a way I didn't want to admit. Everything I'm not supposed to, he said. Silence wrapped around us, not awkward, not heavy, but warm. A silence charged with something growing rapidly between us. Logan, I said gently, you're allowed to feel, even here. That's the thing, he muttered. I shouldn't. But you do, I replied. He nodded slowly, helplessly. I placed my hand on his arm lightly, as if guiding him. Come with me. I led him into my private office, a quiet space where the ceiling lights glowed softly, and the city stretched behind the glass in a wash of early daylight. He followed me inside and stopped near the desk. He looked like a man who wanted to confess everything, but feared the consequences. I positioned myself closer than before, watching the tension in his shoulders. You're trembling, I said softly. He shook his head. I'm not. But he was. You want to tell me the truth, I guessed, but you're afraid that if you say it, everything will end. His eyes widened slightly. Yes, he said. Exactly. Maybe it won't end, I said. He looked confused, vulnerable. Why? I held his gaze. Because I'm not angry. His breath caught. You're not? No. He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched the way his entire body softened in relief. He'd been holding tension for too long, hiding behind planned reactions and practiced looks. Now they were gone. Now he was real. And real men never last long in front of me without revealing everything. I wanted to tell you the truth last night, he said quietly. I tried. But then you touched me and I stepped closer until our bodies were inches apart. You lost control? I asked. Yes, he whispered. I could feel the warmth radiating off him, the conflict, the desire, the fear of hurting me, the deeper fear of disappointing me. It all poured off him like heat. Logan, I said softly, I don't need your confession today. When you're ready, you'll tell me. But I want to, he insisted. I want to be honest with you. You will, I said. I raised my hand and rested my fingers lightly on his jaw. He froze, breath trapped between his lips. You don't have to rush, I whispered. Because nothing you say will make me let you go. His eyes flicked from my lips back to my gaze slowly, like he couldn't decide which part of me pulled him stronger. You're impossible, he whispered. And you're overwhelmed, I replied. He let out a soft, unsteady laugh. Not confident, not smooth, human. I'm trying so hard to do my job, he admitted. But every time I see you, I forget what I'm supposed to be doing. I smiled gently. Then maybe you're exactly where I want you. His breath deepened. Kiara? He said, voice breaking slightly. You don't know how difficult this is. I slid my hand down his arm slowly. I know more than you think. He leaned closer without meaning to. His face was inches from mine, and I could feel the warmth of his breath. His lips parted just slightly, as if he wanted to say something but lost the words. I let him come close, closer, closer until our foreheads almost touched. If you keep looking at me like that, I whispered, you're going to do something you can't take back. I already did, he breathed. I fell. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. He didn't mean to say it. It slipped out the way truths slip out when emotions overflow, and that's why I didn't pull away. He stepped even closer, eyes closing for a moment. His lips brushed the side of my cheek. Barely, Not a kiss. Not an accident. A confession. I let him stay there for one soft second before whispering, "You should go home before you lose yourself completely." He opened his eyes slowly. Too late. I stepped back just enough to give him space to breathe. "Tomorrow," I said. "We'll talk again." He nodded, chest rising and falling too fast to hide it. He walked toward the door, stopping once before opening it. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not pushing me away." I gave him a small, controlled smile. I don't push away what I want close. He swallowed hard, the kind of swallow that reveals more truth than any confession. He left the room. And the silence he left behind wasn't calm. It was charged. Because now I knew the truth. Logan Mercer wasn't just falling. He wasn't just conflicted. He was already mine. And he didn't even understand how badly yet. The next few days felt different. Nothing in my schedule changed. I still signed contracts, answered calls, gave orders, and watched my world move in the same efficient rhythm I had built over the years. People greeted me with the same respect. Meetings started on time. Reports arrived on my desk in well-organized folders. But something under the surface had shifted. Logan was quieter. Not distant in a cold way. Not rude. Just heavy. Like every word he chose had to pass through a war inside his chest before reaching his mouth. I felt it each time he stepped into my office. The way he stood a little straighter. The way his eyes softened when they met mine, then hardened again as if he was trying to build a wall that was already broken. He stopped trying to charm me. He stopped using practiced lines. He stopped pretending this was just a job. Now every look he gave me carried a silent question. How do I move without hurting you? He was late that morning. It was the first time. I noticed it immediately. He usually arrived before most of my staff, walking through the doors like he belonged here, like he had rehearsed each step. But that day, I reached my office, checked a few emails, and still did not see him. 10 minutes, 15, 20. I didn't call. I waited. Finally, there was a knock on my door. "Come in," I said. He entered, looking more tense than I had ever seen him. His hair was slightly messy, as if he had run his hands through it too many times. He wore the same kind of dark shirt and black pants, but something about him was off. His eyes were sharper and more tired at the same time. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "You are," I replied. "That's not like you." "I know," he said simply. He didn't offer an excuse. That alone told me something was wrong. "Close the door," I said. He obeyed, then stood in front of my desk, waiting. "Where were you?" I asked. He didn't lie right away. He thought first. That was new. "Meetings," he said finally. "With people I'm not sure I should trust anymore." I held his gaze. "And are they people I know?" "Yes," he answered. Indirectly. We both understood what that meant. His handlers were getting impatient. "Did they ask about me?" I asked calmly. He looked down for a moment. "They always ask about you." And what do you tell them?" I asked. "The minimum," he said. "Less than they want." "And more than I want?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "Maybe." I rose from my chair and walked around the desk until I stood in front of him. He lifted his head slowly, eyes pulling up to meet mine. "Logan," I said, "you knew from the beginning that this was going to be complicated." "Yes," he replied. "I just didn't expect it to feel this impossible." "Impossible how?" I asked. He shook his head, letting out a frustrated breath. "They want information. They want patterns. They want details about your operations, your movements, your people. They expect me to deliver. That's why I was placed here. That's why I was trained for this." "I know," I said quietly. He blinked. "You know." I nodded once. "I'm not blind, Logan." I didn't build this life by trusting every new face that smiles at me. He swallowed hard. Then why did you let me stay? Because I wanted to see what you would do when the moment came, I replied. When you had to choose between them and me. His breathing deepened. I already chose. Did you? I asked. Yes, he said, voice rough. I chose you. And they know something is wrong. They can feel it. How? I asked. He looked away, then back at me. Because I don't send what they ask for. Because I avoid questions. Because when they push, I give them nothing useful. Because I sound different when I talk about you now. And what do you sound like? I asked softly. He gave a small, sad smile. Like a man who cares. I let that sit between us for a moment. Then I asked, did they threaten you? He hesitated, then nodded once. Not directly, not yet. But I know the way they speak. The pressure has changed. They're done waiting. I stepped closer to him. We were now only a breath apart. And what will you do? I asked. He looked into my eyes, and I saw it clearly. Fear. Yes, but also determination. I'll do what I should have done the minute I realized what I was feeling, he said. I'll cut them off. That's dangerous, I replied. So is staying connected to them while He stopped, then forced himself to continue. While I'm this deep with you. I didn't react visibly, but my chest tightened at the way he said with you, instead of in this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. This is the last piece of them that's attached to me, he said quietly. They contact me on this. I report through this. My entire assignment runs through this. If I erase it, I step off their path. I lose protection. I lose security. I lose everything I thought I needed. You're willing to do that? I asked. For you? He said. Yes. He unlocked the screen and showed me the messages. I didn't need to read every word to understand. Instructions, check-ins, questions about me, reminders of what he was supposed to be doing. He scrolled up, then down, then looked at me. Say it, he whispered. Tell me what to do. I held his gaze. I won't order you. Why? He asked. Because then you could say you did it for orders, I replied. I want this choice to be yours, completely. Something in his eyes broke open at that. He stared at the screen for a long second, then another. His thumb hovered over the delete options. And then, without looking away from me, he pressed. Delete conversation. Delete contact. Clear history. He moved through every step like someone removing chains, link by link. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was simple, and that made it even more powerful. When he was done, he locked the phone and slid it back into his pocket. I'm alone now, he said quietly. At least on that side. You're not alone, I replied. He let out a shaky breath. It feels like it. I reached out and rested my hand on his chest, feeling the fast rhythm beneath my palm. You're not alone, I repeated. You're with me. His hand covered mine, pressing it gently against his heart. I hope you know what that means, he said softly. I do, I replied. It means we move forward together, not as enemies, not as adversaries, not as a queen and an infiltrator, as something else. He searched my eyes. As what? I held his gaze steady. As two people who are choosing each other, even when it is not safe. He swallowed. That doesn't scare you? No, I said. Because I spent my entire life surrounded by people who pretended they were safe. It's more honest to stand next to someone who knows the risks and stays anyway. His fingers tightened around my hand. I'm not going anywhere, he said. Good, I replied, because I'm not done with you. A faint smile touched his lips. There was a knock at the door. We both stepped back, separating naturally. Come in, I said. One of my assistants walked in with a folder. Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Conti. We received a notice about an external audit request from a security partner linked to one of your older contacts. Logan's body went rigid. Name? I asked. She read it from the document. It matched one of the names I had seen briefly on his phone before he erased everything. I glanced at him. His jaw was clenched, eyes narrowed, expression deadly serious. Leave it on the desk, I told her. She did, then left the room. The moment the door closed, I picked up the folder and flipped it open. There it was. Formal language, official tone, false reason. A cover for something else. They're testing you, Logan said. This is not a routine audit. I know, I replied. They want access to your systems, your shipments, your records, he continued. If you agree, they'll send in someone who works for them. If you refuse, they'll push harder. But either way, this isn't about security. It's about control. And what do you suggest? I asked. He took a breath. Let me handle it. How? I asked. I still know how they think, he said. Even without the phone. I know their timing, their tricks, their pressure points. I can anticipate the next move. If you want, I can delay this. I can confuse them. I can make them believe you're cooperating while you actually rearrange everything behind the scenes. I watched him closely. He was no longer speaking like an infiltrator. He was speaking like a man protecting someone he loved. Why would you do that for me? I asked softly. He gave me that small, vulnerable smile again. Because I already betrayed them in my heart the day I danced with you, he said. Today I just made it official. I felt a wave of warmth rise inside me, deeper than I expected. Not just gratitude, not just satisfaction, something more personal. Then do it, I said. But stay close to me while you do. He nodded. Always. The rest of the day, he worked at my side more than usual. He reviewed schedules, rerouted minor deliveries, adjusted access levels, and gently flagged certain systems for temporary maintenance. To anyone else looking in, it would appear like normal operations. To him and to me, it was something else. He was rewriting the path of my organization to protect it from the very people who had sent him. At one point, I found him standing alone in the hallway, staring out a window. I walked up beside him. Are you okay? I asked. He didn't look at me at first. They're not going to give up easily. I know, I said. They'll try other ways, he continued. Different angles, friendly faces, old partners, new contracts. They'll smile while planning to gut everything from the inside. Let them try, I replied. We'll be ready. He finally turned to face me. We, he repeated quietly. It feels good to hear you say that. You chose me today, I said. So yes, we. A quiet moment passed between us. Do you regret it? I asked. He didn't answer right away. He searched his own thoughts, and I waited. No, he said finally. I regret not choosing you sooner. My chest tightened again. The sun began to set outside, casting a warm glow across the floor. People started to leave the building, but we stayed. By the time the lights dimmed in the main hall, it was just the two of us and a few night staff members. I returned to my office to finish some work. A few minutes later, there was a soft knock. Come in, I said. Logan stepped inside, holding 2 cups of coffee. You've been here since sunrise, he said. You need this. I accepted the cup. Thank you. He sat on the couch near the window, for once not standing like a guard, not hovering like a consultant. He looked like a man who had finally stopped running. I watched him for a long moment. You're exhausted, I said. I've had worse days, he replied with a tired half-smile. I don't doubt that, I said. But you're allowed to rest here. He looked at me with a strange expression. I don't know if I remember how to rest around anyone. Then you can remember with me, I said. Something in his face softened at that. He leaned his head back against the couch and closed his eyes for a second. Just a second. His shoulders relaxed. For the first time, He let himself look completely unguarded in my presence. I walked over and sat beside him, leaving just enough space to be respectful. He opened his eyes when he felt the cushion shift. "Is this okay?" I asked. "It's more than okay," he said. We sat in comfortable silence. No pressure, no questions, just shared space. Eventually, his head tilted slightly to the side, and his eyes closed again. His breathing slowed. The coffee cup, now empty, rested on the table beside him. He fell asleep. In my office. Next to me. I watched him for a moment, taking in the relaxed line of his jaw, the way his hair fell slightly over his forehead, the peace that replaced all the conflict I'd seen on his face lately. Without thinking too much about it, I reached for a light jacket hanging on the back of my chair and draped it over him. He didn't wake up. He only sighed quietly and shifted closer to the warmth. I stayed there, watching the city lights reflect in the glass, feeling his presence beside me. I had spent years surrounded by people who were awake and dangerous. Having someone I once considered a threat asleep and safe next to me felt new and right. Hours passed. When he finally stirred, it was already late. He blinked a few times, adjusting to the dim light, then looked at me, still sitting there. "You stayed," he said, voice rough from sleep. "Of course," I replied. "I wasn't going to leave you alone." He looked at the jacket over him, then back at me, his gaze filled with something tender. "No one has done that for me in a long time," he confessed. "Then they were all fools," I said. He smiled softly. "Maybe I was too." I stood. He followed. "Go get some real sleep," I said. "Tomorrow will not be easier." He nodded. "I know." He walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Kiara?" "Yes?" "I made my choice today," he said. "If I have to pay for it, I will. But I won't take it back. Not now. Not ever." I took a slow step toward him. "If you're willing to pay for choosing me," I said, "then let me be the one who makes sure you're not paying alone." His eyes searched mine, full of emotion he didn't bother to hide anymore. He closed the distance between us, slowly, giving me time to stop him if I wanted to. I didn't. He raised a hand and brushed a strand of hair away from my face, his touch careful and gentle. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not letting me walk this path alone." I leaned in, and this time it was natural. No performance, no testing, no pretending. When his lips finally met mine, the kiss was soft, steady, and honest. No rush, no confusion. Just two people choosing each other in a world that never made that choice easy. When we parted, his forehead rested against mine. "We're really doing this," he said softly. "Yes," I answered. "We are." He smiled, and for the first time since I met him, he looked free. He left soon after, and I stayed near the window looking out at the city. My reflection in the glass was the same, but inside, everything had changed. Logan had cut himself loose from the people who sent him. He chose me. Tomorrow, I would ask him for something bigger. The one thing that could end this war before it truly started. And I knew he would give it to me. Because now, he wasn't just the infiltrator in my world. He was the man I was starting to fall for. And I wasn't about to let anyone take him away from me. I woke up the next morning with a different kind of certainty. Not the kind that comes from strategy or numbers or well-organized plans on a table. I knew how to live with those. That had been my entire life. But this was something else. Softer. Deeper. Warm in a way I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. I had kissed a man who came into my world with the intention of betraying me. And I didn't regret it. I arrived at my headquarters and walked through the lobby, my heels echoing against the polished floor. People moved out of the way like they always did, nodding, greeting me with their usual respect. Nothing looked different from the outside. But inside, everything had changed. I checked the time. He was here. I didn't see him yet, but I felt him. There's a certain awareness that appears when you start to care about someone. You notice pauses, sounds, the way the air shifts when they're close. I turned the corner and stopped. He was standing at the far end of the hall, leaning against the wall near my office door. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't hiding behind paperwork. He wasn't pretending to be busy. He was just waiting for me. When he saw me, he straightened slowly. His eyes softened in that way they did only when we were alone, or almost alone. His entire posture changed, less formal, more honest. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning, Logan," I answered. We didn't touch, not here, not in front of anyone else. But the silence between us was filled with the memory of last night. The way he fell asleep in my office, the way I stayed, the way he kissed me before leaving. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Inside." I unlocked my office and stepped in. He followed, closing the door behind us. The quiet that settled was almost heavy. He walked toward the center of the room and stopped, turning to face me fully. His eyes were different today, clearer, resolved. "I'm ready," he said. "For what?" I asked, even though I knew. "For everything," he answered. "For the truth. For whatever comes after it." I moved slowly around my desk but didn't sit. I wanted to hear this standing, eye to eye, nothing between us. "Then start," I said. "Tell me who you really are, Logan Mercer." He took a breath that came from somewhere deep in his chest. "My name is real," he began. "Logan Mercer." I didn't lie about that. I didn't lie about my training either. I did work in security. I did study people. I did learn how to blend in, how to observe without being noticed, how to find cracks in any structure. He paused. "But the people who trained me," he continued, "they weren't doing it to protect anyone. They wanted access. They wanted control. They wanted to stand behind bigger names and pull the strings without anyone knowing it was them." I watched him carefully, absorbing every word, every change in his tone. "They made contact with one of your old associates," he said. "Someone who resented you for a decision you made years ago. Someone who wanted you to pay for walking away from him. He didn't have the power to go after you alone, so he offered information to the people I work." He stopped himself. "The people I used to work for," he corrected. "They wanted you. Not your territory. Not your money. You." "Why?" I asked. He looked at me with an expression that mixed respect and something like sadness. "Because you built something clean in a world that isn't," he said. "You keep order where others spread chaos. You have loyalty where others have fear. You have people who would stand and fight for you instead of running at the first problem. They see that as a threat to their way of doing things. They want to break the example," I said. He nodded. "Yes. They don't like leaders they can't control. And they hate women they can't manipulate." That didn't surprise me. "And their plan?" I asked. "What exactly did they intend to do?" His jaw tightened. "They wanted someone to get close to you," he said. "Not just physically, personally. Emotionally. Someone who could sit near you every day, listen, watch, slowly earn your trust. Someone you would be tempted to let inside your private space, your thoughts, your plans. In other words," I said calmly, "someone who would make me drop my guard." "Yes," he answered. "And that person was you," I said. He nodded. "Yes." I stepped closer, watching his expression carefully. "How did they approach you?" I asked. "Why did you agree?" He looked away for a moment, then back at me. "I grew up around people like them," he said. "People who always had something to hide. People who used charm as currency. I watched men who smiled while planning someone else's downfall. I watched women who got close to powerful men just to sell pieces of their lives to anyone who paid. I told myself I was different because I wasn't the one giving orders. I was just the one executing them. "Just the tool," I said. "Yes," he agreed. I convinced myself I was harmless because I never pulled a trigger, never ordered a hit, never touched anything directly. I used what I had, my ability to read people, to adapt to them, to make them trust me. He gave a bitter half-smile. I was good at it, he added quietly. Too good. And when they gave you my name? I asked. His eyes darkened with memory. They said you were cold, he said. Cruel. Untouchable. They said you were dangerous for their future, and that the best way to break you was from the inside. They told me no one ever got close to you. They described you like a puzzle they wanted me to solve. And you agreed, I said. Yes, he answered honestly. I thought it would be just another assignment. Another person I didn't truly know. Another life I could step into and walk out of without feeling anything. He drew a slow breath. Then I walked into your office, he said. And everything changed. I didn't look away. What changed exactly? I asked. You, he said simply. You looked at me and I felt seen. Not like a game piece, not like a weapon, not like an asset, just like a man walking into a room he shouldn't underestimate. And that bothered you? I asked. It shook me, he said. Because in the first 10 seconds I realized something I didn't want to admit. I wasn't the one in control. You were. I let a small silence pass between us. And yet, I said, you continued the assignment. You stayed. Yes, he admitted. Because I told myself I could handle it. That I could keep my distance, learn what I needed, and leave before anything real happened. And then? I asked. Then you started talking, he said quietly. And you weren't what they said. You weren't cold. You weren't cruel. You weren't careless. You were direct, smart, fair. You noticed everything. You didn't pretend to be better than the world you live in, but you weren't proud of its ugliness either. You were human. Strong, but human. The honesty in his voice pulled at something inside me I didn't want to name yet. And that scared you, I said. Yes, he replied. Because it's easy to betray a monster. It's harder to betray someone who looks at you like you're more than the worst thing you've done. He swallowed. When you asked me to dance, he continued, that should have been the moment I stepped back. Instead, that was the moment I started to fall. The way you moved with me, the way you looked into my eyes without fear. I forgot there were people waiting for my reports. I forgot there were questions I was supposed to be asking. I forgot there was any plan other than you. He shook his head softly. By the time I tried to confess, he said, I was already too involved. I didn't know how to tell you who I was without risking everything. And then you didn't push me away. His voice softened. You touched my face, he said. You told me I didn't have to rush. You stayed when I fell asleep. You covered me with your jacket. You kissed me. And that's when I understood it completely. Understood what? I asked quietly. That I had already chosen you, he said, long before I was brave enough to say it out loud. My chest tightened. I took another step closer. You're not asking for my forgiveness, I observed. You're just giving me the truth. Yes, he said, because I don't want anything from you that's built on a lie. Not your trust, not your touch, not your love, if you ever decide to give it. The way his voice shook at that last word almost made me stop breathing. And what about them? I asked. What happens now that you cut them off? They'll come, he said. Not all at once, not loudly. But they'll make moves. They'll test weak spots. They'll send new faces, new offers, new pressures. They'll try to punish me by punishing the person I defected for. Me, I said. Yes, he answered. I studied his face, the tension in his jaw, the regret in his eyes, the raw honesty in his voice. Then we won't let them get close, I said. He stared at me. We? Yes, I replied. We. I let that word sink in for both of us. Logan, I said softly. I knew. His eyes widened. You... what? I knew, I repeated. From the first day. From the way you walked in. From the way you watched me. From the way you spoke. You didn't feel like someone who came here to support me. You felt like someone who came here to study me. He took a step back, shocked. You knew I was sent here. And you still let me stay? Yes, I said. Why? He demanded, not angrily, but desperately. Why would you let someone like me get that close? Because I wanted to see what kind of man you would choose to be when you were forced to pick a side, I answered. I stepped toward him again, closing the distance he had created. Anyone can play a role when they're following orders, I said. But when everything is on the line, when your heart, your safety, your future are all at risk, that's when I see the real person underneath. He looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should be angry or relieved. You used me, he said finally. Just like I was sent here to use you. Yes, I admitted. At first. His breath caught. But something changed, I continued. You stopped playing a part. You stopped smiling for their benefit. You stopped filtering what you felt. You said things you weren't supposed to. You protected me even when it meant failing your mission. I let my voice soften. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I said, I stopped seeing you as an infiltrator. He swallowed. What did you start seeing me as? He whispered. I lifted my hand and placed it gently over his heart. As a man I could finally trust, I said. Not because you were perfect. Not because you never lied. But because when the moment came, you couldn't pretend anymore. His eyes glossed with the kind of emotion he had tried so hard to hide from me. I'm so sorry, he said. For how it started. For what I agreed to. For every second I stood in front of you as something I wasn't. I know, I replied. And I accept your apology. But more than that, I accept your choice. My choice? He repeated. You chose me, I said simply. No one forced you to delete that phone. No one forced you to turn your back on them. No one forced you to come here today and tell me everything. You did that. Not as their infiltrator, as my man. The words slipped out before I could censor them. My man. He heard them. The look in his eyes changed again. It wasn't confusion this time. It wasn't guilt. It was something softer. Something full. Something that made my chest feel too small to hold it. Your man, he repeated quietly. Say it again. I took a step closer. Our faces were inches apart now. You chose me, I said. So you're mine. His breath hitched. He lifted his hand and cupped the side of my face gently, thumb brushing along my cheek in a slow, reverent motion. I never thought I'd hear you say anything like that, he whispered. You were not supposed to, I said. And yet, he murmured, here we are. He leaned in, giving me time to stop him if I wanted to. I didn't. Our lips met again, deeper this time. Not just curiosity, not confusion, not a sudden reaction. This was a decision, a promise, clear, strong, steady. His hand moved to the back of my neck, not to control, but to hold, as if he were afraid this moment would disappear if he didn't anchor himself to it. I slid my hands up his chest, feeling his heart racing under my palms. We pulled away only when breathing became necessary. He rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed. I am yours, he said quietly. Completely. I let those words sink into me. They hit a place I had forgotten existed. Then if you're mine, I said, I'll need something from you. He opened his eyes slowly. Anything. Information, I said. Everything they planned. Every move they considered. Every name, every contact, every safe route, every weak spot they think I have. I don't need details for revenge. I need them so I can neutralize whatever is coming before it even starts. He nodded without hesitation. You'll have it, he said. All of it. I won't hold back. Not about them. Not about me. Not about anything. We do this smart, I said. Quiet. No noise. No drama. No chaos. We don't fight them head on. We stay 2 steps ahead. We block them without letting them know how. Agreed, he said. I moved back to my desk and gestured toward the chair across from it. Sit, I said. We're going to write down everything, piece by piece. We'll turn your past into our advantage. He sat, and I sat across from him. For the next hour, he talked, not in codes, not in vague hints. Clearly, openly. He told me about their structure, their habits, the way they like to hide behind legitimate fronts. He gave me names, but I didn't need many. I needed patterns. And he remembered everything. Every meeting, every instruction, every expectation they had of him, every way they planned to get to me. I listened. I took notes. I didn't react emotionally. This wasn't about anger now. This was about protection. For my people. For myself. For him. When he finished, his shoulders dropped like he had emptied a weight he'd been carrying for years. That's all of it, he said quietly. There are no more secrets. Not from me. Good, I replied. He looked at me, a hint of fear returning to his eyes. What now? He asked. Now, I said. We turn everything you just gave me into a shield instead of a weapon. And after that? He pressed. I stood and walked around the desk again. He turned his chair slightly to follow my movement. After that, I said, lowering my voice, we build a life where no one gets to use you again. Not them. Not anyone. He stared at me like he couldn't believe I meant it. You'd really do that? He asked. For me? For us, I corrected. His lips parted slightly. Hope, real, unguarded hope, appeared in his eyes. You're not afraid this will make you weak? He asked. Being attached to someone like me? I shook my head. Love doesn't make me weak, I said. It makes me clear. And right now, I have never been more sure of anything in my life. His eyes glistened with emotion, but he didn't look away. I don't deserve you, he said. I decide what I deserve, I replied. And right now, I want you. He stood, stepping closer until there was no space left between us. Then you have me, he said. All of me. My hand slid up his chest and rested over his heart again. Good, I whispered. Because when they come, and they will, they'll find out that the man they sent to destroy me is the one standing beside me when I win. His lips curved in a small, confident smile. We will win, he said. Yes, I replied. We will. I leaned up and kissed him again, slow and sure. He kissed me back with the kind of certainty that didn't belong to a man who was lost anymore. It belonged to a man who had finally chosen a side and was proud of it. When we broke apart, I didn't step away entirely. Get ready, I said softly. The next days will test everything we just decided. I know, he answered, but I'm not afraid anymore. Why not? I asked. He smiled in that gentle, honest way that I was starting to crave. Because for the first time in my life, he said, I'm not standing on the wrong side of the line. I let my forehead rest against his again. And for the first time in mine, I whispered, I'm letting someone step fully into my world. We stayed like that for a moment, just breathing, just existing. Then I pulled back slowly. Let's finish preparing, I said. Tomorrow we start closing all the doors they think are open. He nodded. Yes, Mafia Queen, he murmured, with a soft, loving tone. I felt a smile pull at my lips. And after that, I said, we'll see what it's like to live a life that isn't just about surviving. He looked at me like I'd just given him something priceless. Together? He asked. Together, I confirmed. He left my office later with a new purpose. Not as the infiltrator he had been. As my ally. my partner, the man who chose me over everything else. I turned back to the window and looked out at the city. They were coming. They just didn't know yet that the game had already changed. And this time, when they moved against me, they wouldn't just find Chiara Conti waiting for them. They would find both of us. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. Not the calm that comes before a storm. Not the calm of denial. This was something else. Something rare. The calm that comes when you finally decide to stop running from the truth. I was in love with a man who was once my enemy, and he was in love with me. There was nothing left to hide. I arrived at headquarters earlier than usual. The hallways were quiet, the large windows showing a sky still half asleep. Everything felt slow and soft, as if the world itself knew something important was about to happen. Logan wasn't at the usual spot by my door. I didn't panic. I walked inside my office, placed my things on the desk, and inhaled deeply. The door knocked once. "Come in," I said. He stepped inside slowly, closing the door behind him. His expression was different today. Open, peaceful, steady. He wore a simple black shirt with rolled sleeves, hair pulled back neatly, no tension in his posture. He didn't look like a man carrying a heavy secret anymore. He looked like a man who had finally put his past down. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," I answered, feeling warmth spread through me. He walked closer, stopping only when he was near enough for me to feel his presence. "I thought about you all night," he said softly. I smiled. "I know. And I'm not afraid of anything anymore," he added. "You shouldn't be," I replied. "Not now." He nodded once, then took a seat across from me. "Tell me what you want me to do today," he said. Not as an infiltrator, not as a consultant, as my partner. I opened a folder on my desk, a clean summary of everything he gave me yesterday. Patterns, predictions, contact points, the moves they'd try to make next. "We're not fighting them head on," I said. "We're not responding to their pressure. We're not showing fear, and we're not giving them anything to push against." He nodded. "Agreed. They expect resistance from me," I continued. "They expect stubbornness, pride, aggression. They believe I'll try to cut them off." He leaned forward slightly. "So we give them the opposite." "Yes," I said. "We let them think we're calm, busy, distracted. We answer slowly, ignore unimportant requests, delay responses, adjust access little by little. Nothing bold, nothing loud." "Soft misdirection," he said. "Exactly," I replied. "They'll interpret it as weakness, as lack of awareness. And that's when you'll quietly close the last door they think they still have." His lips curved into a small smile. "You really trust me with that?" "I trust you," I said plainly. His chest rose with a deep breath, as if that sentence reached someplace inside him nothing else ever had. "Then I won't fail you," he said. "You won't," I answered. "Because you're not doing this alone." He looked at me with such gratitude it almost hurt. We started working. For the next hours, he reviewed old connections, flagged suspicious requests, rerouted minor pathways, and left harmless tasks unanswered. I made decisions with confidence, moved pieces quietly, signed necessary approvals, and adjusted our schedule so nothing critical could be reached from the outside. By noon, Logan stood behind me while I worked, reading a message over my shoulder from one of his former handlers. "They're getting nervous," he said. "I know," I replied. "They're trying to play polite now," he added. "They're pretending to soften so I lower my guard," I said. "It won't work." He looked down at me, and something like pride filled his eyes. "You're incredible," he murmured. "I am," I teased lightly. "But today, so are you." He smiled, quiet and warm. Hours passed. Nothing dramatic, no ambushes, no confrontations, just quiet, steady work and subtle redirection. Exactly the kind of strategy that wins long games. Late afternoon, Logan placed a final report on my desk. "This is the last thread they had," he said. I closed it. I scanned the brief confirmation logs he'd prepared. Everything was sealed, cleared, shifted, or removed safely. "They can't reach you anymore," he added. "Not from inside, not from any angle." I looked up at him. "You did this," I said. "We did this," he corrected. He stepped closer. "You know what this means?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "It means," he said softly, "that nothing ties me to them anymore. Nothing." I stood slowly, our gazes locked. "And nothing keeps you from me anymore," I whispered. He drew a sharp breath, not out of fear, out of something deeper. Relief, want, love. "Kiara," he said, stepping closer. "I don't know how to be the man you deserve, but I know I want to try with everything I have." I moved toward him until we were inches apart. "You already are," I said. His hand came to the side of my face, thumb tracing my cheek gently. "I never imagined I'd find a place where I felt safe," he said. "You gave me that. You didn't have to. You had every reason to push me away. But I didn't," I said. "No," he whispered. "You didn't. And I keep wondering why." I smiled. "Maybe because I saw something in you before you saw it in yourself," I said. "Maybe because even when you were lying, you still told the truth with your eyes. Maybe because you looked at me like I was someone worth choosing. And you are," he said quickly. "You are. I've never met anyone like you." My heart warmed in a way I wasn't used to. "And I've never met a man like you," I said. "Someone brave enough to walk into my world and still choose to stay." He inhaled deeply, leaning closer. "I stay for you," he whispered. "Only you." I felt my breath catch just before his lips met mine again. This kiss wasn't a confession. It wasn't fear. It wasn't desperation. It was a beginning. Steady. Intentional. Full of everything we hadn't said yet. His hand moved to my waist, pulling me closer with a tenderness that felt impossibly soft for a man who had lived through so much. I rested my hands on his chest, feeling the beat of his heart under my palms. Fast, warm, alive. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us moved away. "Kiara," he murmured, forehead resting against mine. "I love you." My breath stilled. He didn't plan it. He didn't rehearse it. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple, pure, honest, and it broke something open inside me that had been locked away for years. "I love you too," I said. His eyes closed, and I felt the relief wash through him like warmth spreading against my skin. "I didn't know if you ever would," he whispered. "I didn't either," I replied. "But I do." He pulled me into his arms, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself rest there, against someone who wasn't using me, wasn't planning something, wasn't hiding a knife behind a smile, just a man who loved me. When we finally sat together on the couch near the window, he kept his arm around me, holding me like something precious and unbreakable. "What happens now?" he asked gently. "Now?" I said. "Now we live. Now we breathe. Now we stop surviving and start choosing each other every day." He took my hand and kissed the back of it. "And what about them?" he asked quietly. "They'll look for you," I said. "They'll wonder why they lost their perfect infiltrator. And when they do," I turned to him fully, cupping his face, "they will find out that the man they sent to destroy me became the reason I'm stronger than ever." He smiled softly. "And they will learn," I added, "that love, when chosen freely, is the one thing they could never control." Logan let out a small breath, almost a laugh. "You really are impossible to fight," he whispered. "Good," I said, leaning in to kiss him again. "Because I don't want you fighting me. I want you beside me. Always," he said. The sun began to set outside the glass window, painting the office in warm gold. He kissed my forehead softly and pulled me against him, my head resting on his chest. For the first time in years, I felt completely safe. Not because I was powerful, not because I was feared, not because I was in control, but because someone chose me, freely, honestly, fully. And I chose him back. No lies, no missions, no masks, just us. Two people who were never meant to fall in love, and did anyway. When I closed my eyes, I realized something. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just the Mafia queen. I was his woman, his partner, his future. And he was mine. We had already won, together. Before you go, I'd love to ask you for a small favor. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me more than you can imagine and keeps these videos coming. The link is right below the video. And if you're watching on TV, just point your phone's camera at the QR code on your screen. With this simple gesture, you support a creator like me in the most powerful way. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.